Hello everybody, excited to be talking to you today. I'm standing here with the Turley boys, and we're going to talk to you about our tissue sampling slash high yield strategies. So to get started, let's introduce you to the Turley boys. Doug, won't you tell us a bit about your operation?
I'm Doug Turley, farm Webster County, Kentucky. Clay is the town we're close by. Farm around 6,000 acres of corn and soybeans. Raise a little bit of wheat, mainly cut for hay. We've got a cow-calf operation, around 250 mama cows.
So as you can see, Doug, Ben, there's no shortage of things to do, right? We're always busy. Well, we started this high yield strategy somewhere probably around the year 2016. We were all green. We had no idea what we were doing, but we just knew there was room to improve. We knew we could all get better. So, Ben, I'll direct this question to you, and we don't have to dive into specifics, but over the last several years, say since 2016, what do you think the key takeaways have been? What strategies have we developed that have become an absolute must on Turley Farm?
I think some of the key strategies that we've tried to implement on our farm is a strategic placement of our fertilizer with our planter in that planter pass, and there's really no replacement or any way, I feel, of getting around that fertility pass with the planter and placing that fertilizer in close proximity to the seed, and especially on a year like we've just been going through here where things have been dry, having that fertilizer that's easily accessible to the plant, I think has been a big deal, and really every year. But I think that's one of the main things that's really allowed us to excel on the yield side of our corn. But another thing is just the liquid side dress, I think, has really been a benefit and a strategy that's allowed us to apply different types of fertilizers throughout the season, and we can kind of change our mix on the fly if we need to. If we see that we're low on one nutrient or another, we can always add more things in, and I think that has allowed us, and also our high clearance sprayer pass has allowed us to do more things that benefit the crop later in the season. And I think that those are really three of the things that we've tried to implement that have really allowed us to give us the flexibility to apply different products throughout the year to be a benefit to our crop.
So that's excellent, Ben. Ben, he's the planter man, the side dress guy. Doug, he's the guy that runs this high clearance rig. And Ben mentioned how important fungicide is to our crop. But Doug, I might ask you a specific question about the fungicide. You know, we've learned a lot. What do you think would be one of the biggest things about applying the fungicide that you've learned over the last couple of years?
Specifically on applying fungicide during the growing season, I feel like we've learned a lot. We started in doing testing with an old John Deere 3-wheeler, 6,000, that, you know, just doing some side-by-side testing, and we seen the first year that we did that no matter what it takes to make it happen, that we had to make it happen somehow or another, and we have grown since then to a high clearance sprayer where we can, you know, get over several acres during the day. But seeing the disease is only half the battle. Keeping disease out of the corn, it's also keeping that plant healthy and keeping that plant alive longer throughout the growing season. Can add a tremendous amount of bushels at the end of the day, with having you know, keeping that plant alive, even if it's just a handful of days, just, you know, adding a little bit of girth to each kernel makes a huge difference.
Yeah, so that's exactly right, Doug. I love y'all's approach. You know, you bought that cheap sprayer just to do some testing, and you found out right off the bat that, you know, being able to get into this tall corn was essential. And even adding a day extra to a corn plant's life is a humongous deal. So awesome answer, fellas. So fellas, you know, this approach to managing the corn crop is pretty intense, I would say. Do you think this strategy has caused you to be an overall better steward of the crop?
Absolutely. Josh, we used to like to go fishing in the summertime, and now we spend all of our time in the corn and the bean fields. But no, we've learned a lot over the last few years since we started really implementing tissue sampling and digging roots and just learning from the crop alongside you, learning a lot from your knowledge. But it has to be boots on the ground when it comes to doing this kind of program, because, you know, you get out there and it makes you want to learn more, because, you know, you try this pass of whatever it might be, and you see if you could move the needle on a tissue sample, and if you can't, then you try something else, or if you do, you know, and we've settled on a whole lot of things that we've tried different methods of applying it, and, you know, we've finally found out that, you know, what the best method of each one is, and it's really helped drive our yield.
So Ben, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think this has made you a better steward of the crop?
I think it's definitely made us better stewards of the crop. There's a lot of things that we pay attention to now that we never even thought about in years past. And I would consider really what we've been on since 2016 is almost a crash course in Josh Johnston agronomy. But we've learned about things, we've tried things. Some things have worked out, some things have not, obviously. But we have, on the money side, I mean, there again, we've done some things that have paid off, and we've done some things that have cost us money. But I feel like all those lessons are essential to us learning for ourselves what works and what doesn't. And if something's paying off, then I feel like we have to find a way to make that happen on the application side. And if it works, then we have to make it work on our operation. And we have to fit that process in somehow to better our operation for the years to come.
So we have implemented a lot of changes, and a lot of these things aren't easy, and they're very difficult to implement. So I thought I might ask you guys that question. We'll start with you, Ben. You know, what are some of the biggest challenges into raising this high yielding corn?
I'd say probably the biggest challenge that we've had to overcome on my end of doing everything is the planter pass and that 2x2 pass and all the fertilizer that we have to tender to the planter, and also just the planter going from one operation to actually two operations now. You know, there is extra work and preparation that goes into getting the planter ready, and also when you're in the field, you know, not only do you have to worry about your planter units and their operation, you also have to worry about your 2x2 units and their operation, and it does add time, does add downtime, and there's a lot of things that are hard to account for, and it's just, and then having someone that has to tender you all that product is another challenge you have to overcome, because now, I mean, I pretty well have a guy that is with me the whole time I'm planting for the most part, tendering meat product. Our field sizes are pretty small. We can't move over to a 200-acre field and park a truck and leave it there all day. I'm constantly moving, and so someone has to tender meat product and seed all the time. So that would be my biggest challenge that we've had to overcome on our change of management style.
To add to what Ben was saying about the challenges, it is a challenge, keeping everything to the planter and keeping the wheels of the planter going. Extra downtime, but what we've learned over the years is no matter what, it makes such a difference. We have to make it work, and that's been our key focus on the last several years since we started it all. Is if it works, what do we have to do to make it happen? And other challenges, you know, the sprayer right here, pretty well live in it anymore. It never ends. It going from burn down to post herbicide application and then on to fungicide application. The wheels turn a lot, and there's a lot of hours logs sitting in the seat of the sprayer. But I enjoy it because you are able to be out there and see the crop and see what's going on, and you know, and it makes you get out there and walk the crop and see what's going on and see different diseases or deficiencies that are in the cornfield or bean field. And that way you can try to implement and see what you can correct during the growing season.
So the last question I have for you gentlemen this morning maybe is the most important question. We've discussed, you know, how much more difficult this makes our job. It's way more intense. We're in the crop all the time. We've had to make major changes, purchasing equipment like this sprayer back here. You know, that wasn't a cheap purchase by any means. So the final question is it worth it? We started somewhere in the 2016, 2017 time frame. The question I have for you, are your yields increasing?
Well, Josh, I mean, you know, that's one of those $1 million questions, I guess, as far as profitability. But I will say this: we're not planning to go back to the old ways of doing things. You know, as far as a percentage of bushel increase, every year's different. I can't sit here and say that there's a definite percentage of yield increase. I can say that there is a yield increase, and we were flatlined for several years as far as our yields, you know, just going flat. And then when we started implementing this, we've been on a steady increase every year, actually, because we implement something new every year, and the yields have continued to climb because I feel like we learn more and more each year that goes by, and we try to implement that.
Well, fellas, I just wanted to say to you how thankful I am that y'all took time out of your schedule. You just got done telling everybody how hard this is and how hard you got to work. So thank you guys for stopping just a minute and sharing some of this information with us. I would have to say that, you know, these are some of my best close friends, and I think because they're so willing to just try. They're so willing to do research. They're never satisfied. You know, last year or the year before last was their highest yield ever, and they were mad because they said we could have done better. That's the kind of people, that's the kind of attitude you got to have when you're doing this high yield strategy. And I will add on to what Doug was saying. I've been working with several customers over the last few years in this high yield strategy, and they all say the same thing, Doug. You know, we were kind of stagnant. We were flat for several years. Then when we started approaching this crop from a complete systematic standpoint. We're going to monitor from the beginning all the way to the end. We're going to implement all these different strategies throughout the year, and they're saying the same thing. Their yields are slowly starting to increase, which it has to go through this much trouble. So once again, thank you guys so much for the time this morning. I appreciate all the information that you're willing to share with us. Thank you guys.